Well, good morning. I'm Brent Adams here with your Rural Strong Morning Ag Report for this Wednesday, February 7th. Leading off the headlines this morning, farmer sentiment took a downturn at the start of 2024 as the January Purdue University CME Group Ag Economy Barometer Index fell to a reading of 106, which is 8 points below a month earlier. Compared to year end, producers had a more negative outlook of their farm's current situation, along with a weakened outlook for the future. The current conditions index fell 9 points, and the future expectations index dropped 7 points, both compared to December. Anticipated lower farm income in 2024 significantly influenced the decline across all indices, evident in the Farm Financial Performance Index registering at 85, which is 12 points lower than a month earlier. The percentage of producers expecting weaker financial performance rose from 20% in December to 31% in January, while those expecting incomes to be about the same fell from 63% to 53%. The combination of high input costs and declining commodity prices generated a weaker financial performance outlook for 2024, according to the survey results. Well, the USDA is making another round of emergency relief program payments to eligible producers for disaster losses suffered in 2020 and 2021. Here with the details is USDA Radio's Gary Crawford.
Farmers today face unpredictable weather disasters plus very tight or non-existent profit margins. So when it comes to getting some sort of payment from the government,
literally every little bit helps.
Zach Ducheneau runs the USDA's Farm Service Agency, and he says most producers who received emergency relief program payments, so-called ERP payments from USDA for disaster losses suffered in 2020 and 2021, those will be getting a little bit more money from the program. Zach says the first round of payments were made with a 75% pay factor to make sure there'd be enough money to go around. There was. So Zach says most producers will get some sort of extra help. He says check with your local Farm Service Agency office to make sure you qualify, but in general,
if you received an ERP phase 1 payment for 2020 or 2021, you'll receive a 3.5% payment on top of that.
Meanwhile, enrollment continues in ERP for disaster losses in 2022. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Well, the USDA is keeping tabs on how shipping constraints in the Red Sea are affecting grain shipments. Here again is Gary Crawford.
The problems in the Red Sea are, of course, in some cases causing some changes in how wheat and other grains are being shipped around the world, if they're being shipped at all.
Where ships might have, previously gone through the Suez Canal, now they have many more being diverted all the way below South Africa and around.
And USDA Outlook Chairman Mark Chekhanowski says to the extent that grain shipments may be rerouted or canceled altogether,
that can have implications for, overall grain trade and potentially even shift some business to the U.S., which could make U.S. supplies more competitive to certain global markets, just based on, logistical advantages.
Mark says USDA analysts are keeping close tabs on the situation as they prepare their new round of World Ag Supply and Demand forecasts, which will be released this Thursday noon Eastern Time. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
An unusual warm spell continues for some winter wheat growing areas, making producers wary about potential impacts from cold weather to crops slowly coming out of dormancy. Here with more is USDA Radio's Rod Bain.
Unusual warmth in parts of the nation's northern tier since a mid-January Arctic blast that covered much of the country.
We saw some 100-plus degree rises in a 2-week period from those minus 40s of mid-January to the 60s of the end of January and early February.
USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says some places noted all-time record high temperatures to end January, such as in Minnesota.
The self-professed icebox of the nation, International Falls, climbing to 53 on the last day of January. And that was an all-time record for the month of January, breaking a record that was set more than a century ago.
Warmth continues in the nation's midsection, causing snow cover in winter wheat fields to melt, leaving crops exposed to potential colder weather.
If we continue to see this crop easing out of dormancy as we move through February, that does become a concern that spring freezes could cause damage to the crop.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Well, the National Chicken Council recently outlined how chicken producers reduce food waste, recycle byproducts, and utilize products that would otherwise be destined for landfills. The comments were in response to the Environmental Protection Agency's proposed draft national strategy for reducing food loss and waste in recycling organics. In its comments, the council emphasized several important points and areas for enhancing the national strategy, including the use of byproducts and rendering, along with automation and transportation improvement efforts. Several current and pending regulatory policies either do or would contribute to food waste in the chicken industry, according to the organization. The first is for the FDA to allow surplus hatchery eggs into the breaking egg market, which would reduce waste and decrease costs. The second is a proposed salmonella framework, which is being drafted with the goal of improving food safety, but is not based on scientific data, nor is it associated with any known public health outcomes, according to the NCC. And finally, this morning, the Super Bowl is just 4 days away, and that means Super Bowl parties and eating. But if you fumble the food safety ball when cooking some of those Super Bowl foods, the penalty could be a bout with food poisoning. Here one final time is Gary Crawford.
Hosting a Super Bowl party Sunday, cooking up some wings and other Super Bowl food favorites.
Food safety steps are going to apply no matter how small your gathering is.
And so will the food poisoning penalties that could happen if those foods are not handled properly. So Agriculture Department food safety expert Meredith Carruthers says if you're quarterbacking in the kitchen on Sunday,
If you're cooking chicken wings or any other kind of chicken, you want to make sure your chicken is cooked to a safe internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit as measured by that food thermometer.
and if you don't do that,
The penalty flag is down.
that's right, if it doesn't reach 165 degrees, any bacteria in or on it could survive and multiply. Also, Meredith says we need to get ground beef to 160 degrees, steaks, roast chops to 140. So, as I always say, don't get sacked by a bacteria blitz this Sunday. You didn't like that?
They're going to blow this one dead.
Meredith, was it that bad?
Yep.
That's what I thought. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
We can keep up with the latest in the world of agriculture by subscribing to the Tractors and Troubadours podcast from Rural Strong Media. Each week, we bring you agriculture industry newsmakers, hot button industry issues, educational features, and the best in traditional country music. The Tractors and Troubadours podcast can be found at ruralstrongmedia.com or wherever you get your podcasts. We also invite you to join us daily on Rural Strong Radio, our 24/7 streaming radio station found at ruralstrongmedia.com or the Live 365 streaming radio app for your mobile device. Each day, we bring you our award-winning agriculture programming, as well as the best in traditional country music, mixed in with a little bluegrass, western swing, southern rock, and inspirational music. Again, the place to find Rural Strong Radio is ruralstrongmedia.com or the Live 365 streaming radio app. We're portable, so take us with you everywhere you go while you're working on the farm or ranch. Let's get through the workday together. Well, I'll be back again tomorrow with another Rural Strong Morning Ag Report here on Steve Shetler Media. Make it a great day, everybody.